In 1977, Steven Spielberg convinced the world to look up at the stars with wonder instead of fear. The production went so far over budget that the crew started calling it closed accounts of the third kind. Yet, somehow, this film about a regular guy building a mountain in his living room became one of the most iconic sci-fi movies ever made. Here are 20 secrets you missed about close encounters that prove the truth really is stranger than fiction. Number 1. The 5-note musical motif became iconic. Those 5 simple tones. Dun, 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 dun. You can probably hear them right now in your head. John Williams composed that signature melody, and here's the thing. He didn't just write it and call it a day. Spielberg made him test over 300 variations before finally giving his approval. 300! That's the musical equivalent of building Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes until you get it exactly right. Today, that 5-note sequence is one of the most recognizable musical phrases in science fiction history. It's been referenced, parodied, and imitated countless times. And it all came down to Spielberg's obsessive perfectionism with those 5 notes. Number 2. Spielberg wrote it as a UFO memory of his childhood. This wasn't just another sci-fi project for Spielberg. This was deeply personal. He based the entire movie on his own childhood fear and fascination with UFOs. Growing up in suburban Arizona, young Steven would stare at the night sky, terrified and mesmerized by the possibility of visitors from another world. He later described Close Encounters as him working through childhood dreams on screen. That's why the movie feels so emotionally authentic. Roy Neary's obsession, his wonder, his inability to explain what he's experienced, that's all Spielberg processing his own feelings from decades earlier. The film is essentially expensive therapy disguised as a summer blockbuster. Number 3. François Truffaut had never acted in an American film. When Spielberg needed someone to play Claude Lacombe, the kind but determined French scientist, he did something wild. He cast François Truffaut, one of the fathers of the French New Wave movement and a legendary director in his own right. Truffaut had never acted in an American film before. He was known for making art films like The 400 Blows and Jules and Jim, not starring in Hollywood sci-fi spectacles. But Spielberg believed Truffaut's face had kindness and authority without force. He wanted someone who looked wise, patient, and trustworthy. And he was right. Truffaut's gentle, observant performance became one of the film's emotional anchors. Talk about inspired casting. Number 4. NASA warned Spielberg not to make the film. Here's where things get genuinely strange. NASA, the actual space agency, reportedly sent Spielberg a 20-page letter discouraging him from making the movie. Their concern? They believed it could cause mass hysteria about UFOs. Think about that. The government organization dedicated to space exploration was telling one of Hollywood's brightest directors not to make a film about friendly aliens. Whether NASA was genuinely worried about public panic or had other reasons remains a topic of speculation among UFO enthusiasts to this day. Spielberg, of course, ignored the letter and made the film anyway. Good thing he did. Number 5. Carl Sagan disagreed with Spielberg. The scientific skepticism didn't end with NASA. Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer and science communicator, told Spielberg directly that the movie was unrealistic. His argument: aliens would never interact with humans so casually. Any species advanced enough to travel between stars, Sagan reasoned, would view us the way we view insects. They certainly wouldn't exchange musical phrases and invite ordinary people onto their spaceships. Spielberg listened politely to Sagan's concerns and then completely ignored them. He wasn't making a documentary about probable alien contact. He was making a film about hope, wonder, and the human need to believe we're not alone. And that film became a timeless classic, while Sagan's objections faded into footnotes. Number 6. The iconic UFO mothership was built from junk. The massive alien mothership, that incredible glowing cityscape hovering in the sky, was built using whatever the visual effects team could find. We're talking airplane parts, plastic molds, model kits, and literal garbage glued together by hand. The VFX crew scavenged hobby shops and hardware stores, grabbing anything that could add texture and detail. When you see those intricate panels and mechanical-looking structures on the ship's surface, you're actually looking at repurposed junk transformed into something otherworldly. It's the perfect metaphor for movie magic itself. Take ordinary objects, light them correctly, film them from the right angle, and suddenly they become proof of alien intelligence. Number 7. A tiny R2-D2 is hidden on the mothership. Speaking of that mothership model, the builders had a sense of humor. They secretly attached a tiny R2-D2 figure to the underside of the ship. If you know where to look during the close-up shots, you can actually see the little droid hanging out among the alien technology. This was 1977, and Star Wars had just become a cultural phenomenon. The model makers couldn't resist the in-joke. It's a beautiful moment of movie geeks celebrating movie geeks, hidden in plain sight for decades. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were friends even then, so it was a friendly nod between collaborators who were reshaping science fiction cinema together. Number 8. The Mexico desert discovery scene was shot in Alabama. Remember that haunting opening sequence where they find a bunch of missing World War II planes perfectly preserved in the Sonora Desert in Mexico? That entire scene was actually filmed in Mobile, Alabama, and not in a desert, in a swamp. The crew built massive sand dunes and carefully controlled what the camera could see to create the illusion of an arid Mexican landscape. Meanwhile, just beyond the frame, there were mosquitoes, humidity, and wetlands everywhere. It's one of those Hollywood magic tricks that works so perfectly you never question it. The scene looks hot, dry, and otherworldly. The reality was sticky, swampy, and very much southeastern United States. Number 9. Roy Neary was based on a real UFO obsession. Roy Neary's descent into obsession after his close encounter wasn't just creative invention. Spielberg based the character's behavior on several documented cases from the 1960s where UFO witnesses became completely consumed by their experiences. These were real people who claimed contact with unknown phenomena and then couldn't function normally in their daily lives. They became fixated, driven, almost manic in their need to understand what happened. Roy building Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes and tearing apart his suburban home mirrors the psychological patterns Spielberg researched. It adds a layer of almost documentary-style authenticity to what could have been just another sci-fi everyman character. Number 10. Production took so long. The movie went massively over budget and way over schedule. The visual effects work was groundbreaking but painfully slow. The production dragged on for so long that exhausted crew members started sarcastically calling it closed accounts of the third kind, a reference to the financial nightmare it was becoming. Columbia Pictures was sweating bullets. They'd bet huge money on an unproven concept from a young director whose previous film was Jaws. The pressure was enormous. Every delay meant more money disappearing. But Spielberg refused to compromise his vision, and somehow, despite the chaos and the costs, he delivered a masterpiece. Number 11. Real military pilots. That iconic sequence where black helicopters descend on Devil's Tower in perfect formation wasn't achieved with actors pretending to fly. Spielberg used actual military personnel to pilot those aircraft. He wanted the movement to look too perfect for actors. A precise, almost mechanical coordination that only trained professionals could achieve. It gives the scene an authentic military feel, like we're watching a real covert operation unfold. The helicopters move with purpose and discipline, adding to the paranoia and conspiracy atmosphere. It's details like this that separate good filmmaking from great filmmaking. Number 12. Filmed before Star Wars, released after. Here's a timeline twist that confuses people. Close Encounters was actually filmed in 1975 and 76, before George Lucas shot Star Wars. But the release was delayed because the visual effects weren't finished. So Star Wars hit theaters first in May of 1977, and Close Encounters followed in November. This means Spielberg was pioneering his own brand, a visual effects wizardry at the exact same time Lucas was revolutionizing his. Two friends, two films, both pushing the boundaries of what cinema could show audiences, and both changed science fiction forever within 6 months of each other. Number 13. Richard Dreyfuss begged for the role. Richard Dreyfuss literally stalked Spielberg to get cast as Roy Neary. He followed him around saying, You need someone who looks like he believes this crazy stuff? That's me. Dreyfuss understood something crucial about the character. Roy couldn't be played as a hero or a scientist or a skeptic. He had to be an ordinary guy who authentically, desperately believes what's happening to him. Dreyfuss had that quality. He could sell wonder and obsession without looking ridiculous. His puppy dog enthusiasm and everyman quality made him perfect. And that persistence paid off. It's impossible to imagine anyone else in that role now. Number 14. The child actors didn't know they were acting. Little Carrie Guffey, who played Barry, gave one of the most natural child performances in cinema history. How? Spielberg filmed his real reactions. The crew would pop out from boxes, offer him toys, surprise him with lights and sounds, and the cameras were always rolling. Those wide-eyed moments of wonder and fear you see on screen, those are genuine responses from a 3-year-old who had no idea he was in a movie. He thought it was all a game. That's why the performance feels so authentic and unforced. Spielberg turned the entire production into an elaborate play session and captured magic in the process. Number 15. The light rays were filmed through aquariums. Those beautiful, shimmering, bending beams of alien light had to be created practically in 1977. The visual effects team came up with an ingenious solution. They shined lights through water tanks and evaporating chemicals to create those otherworldly refractions. The rippling, fluid quality of the alien illumination came from literally filming light passing through water and vapor. It gave the alien presence a dreamlike, almost spiritual quality that computer effects couldn't have matched at the time. Sometimes technical limitations force creativity that becomes iconic. Number 16. A real UFO report inspired the air traffic scene. The sequence where air traffic controllers try to make sense of unexplained objects in the sky wasn't pure fiction. Spielberg used actual recordings from 1950s and 60s pilot encounters as inspiration. The dialogue nearly matches real transcripts from documented cases. Pilots reporting lights that moved impossibly fast, that responded to their presence, that defied explanation. The confusion, the technical language, the mounting tension, all of it was grounded in reality. Spielberg knew that grounding his fantasy in documented phenomena would make the impossible feel disturbingly possible. Number 17. Devil's Tower tourism skyrocketed. After the film, the National Monument in Wyoming saw a 400% increase in visitors the year after the movie's release. 400%. Before Close Encounters, Devil's Tower was a geological curiosity that most Americans had never heard of. After the movie, it became a pilgrimage site for science fiction fans and UFO enthusiasts. People started showing up expecting to find evidence of alien activity. The Park Service had to adjust to suddenly being famous. It's one of the most dramatic examples of a film changing the real-world status of a location. The tower became permanently linked with the possibility of contact. Number 18. Spielberg regrets how this film ended. Years later, after Spielberg became a father, he admitted something surprising. He said that if he made Close Encounters as an adult with children, he would never send Roy Neary away with the aliens. He called the ending naively optimistic, a young man's fantasy of escape and adventure. But as a parent, the idea of abandoning your family to go with aliens felt wrong to him. He understood the sacrifice differently. That ending, which felt triumphant and hopeful in 1977, looked selfish through the lens of fatherhood. It's a fascinating example of how our perspective on our own work changes as we change. Number 19. Spielberg wanted to call it Watch the Skies. The original title came from the final line of The Thing from Another World from 1951. Watch the skies everywhere, keep looking, keep watching the skies. Spielberg loved that phrase, but after hiring UFO expert J. Allen Hynek as a consultant, he changed course. Hynek suggested using the actual scientific classification system he'd developed for UFO encounters. A close encounter of the first kind was a sighting, second kind was physical evidence, third kind was contact. The phrase had legitimacy, mystery, and weight. It transformed the title from pulp nostalgia into something that sounded like genuine research. Marketing gold. Number 20. The film popularized a term still used by UFO researchers. Before this movie, Close Encounter of the Third Kind was a niche term in UFO literature that maybe a few thousand researchers and enthusiasts knew. After the film became a global phenomenon, it entered mainstream vocabulary worldwide. People who'd never read a UFO book suddenly understood the classification system. News reports started using the terminology. It became part of the cultural language around unexplained phenomena. Spielberg didn't just make a successful film, he permanently changed how millions of people talk and think about the possibility of alien contact. That's cultural impact that transcends cinema. Close Encounters proved that science fiction could be about hope instead of horror, wonder instead of warfare. It changed tourism patterns, popularized scientific terminology, and made us all look up at the stars a little differently. If you loved these behind-the-scenes facts, hit subscribe for more forgotten stories from cinema's golden age.